money. So I want to show you guys a cheap and actually affordable way to do an LS swap.
So we're on our way to go pick up one, and we want to show you guys the entire process on how you can basically get an LS motor for free.
All right, this thing has 376,000 miles on it. All right, the guy just left with the bed. I don't know if you guys saw how he loaded that thing up, but he put one strap on it and said, that ain't going nowhere. So. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Russell Mod. In the last episode, you saw us get our 1976 Buick Skylark running and driving after been sitting in a junkyard for a few years. We ended up scoring this car for 200 bucks, and we thought this would be a great candidate to make a really fun thrasher car for the channel. We want to do burnout competitions, go drag racing with it, and a bunch of stuff like that. But an issue with a lot of YouTube builds, it seems like these days, is stuff just gets really expensive. And especially on Marketplace and on Craigslist where we buy these cars like this, everything has gotten so expensive it's hard to be able to build hot rods for cheap. So that's what I wanted to do with this build. I wanted to show you guys how you can still build a fun hot rod classic car, but have a lot more power than it did from the factory and do a bunch more cool stuff with it for a budget. So for this episode, I want to show you guys how we're going to get an LS for this project. Now I know everybody's done LS swaps and it seems like that's the most common thing to do, but a lot of guys spend a ton of money. Whenever you LS swap stuff, wire harnesses, accessories, chassis, everything like that, cam heads, all the stuff that goes into it just costs a ton of money. So I want to show you guys a cheap and actually affordable way to do an LS swap where you guys can actually make money and the project can kind of pay for itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a part out car, a really good budget car that we can get for really cheap that has an LS, and then we can try to sell some parts off of it to be able to recoup the funds of the whole project. So I've done this a few times with a lot of GM trucks. So all the GM trucks have either a 6.0, 5.3 or a 4.8, and they're really great cars to be able to get as project cars. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to snag a Silverado. We're going to part the whole thing out and then recoup the funds from that and put it into our Buick build. So we're actually going to take the engine out of that car, make some money on it, add a little bit of upgrades to it with the money that we made from it, put it in here, and it'll be basically free, or actually we profit a little bit from doing this. So I'm really excited to share with you guys how we're going to do it. So now all that's left to do is to go find a Silverado. So we're going to go pick one up.
What's going on, guys? I don't know if this is a new episode or not, but me and Patrick are here and we're on our way to go pick up a Silverado. So we're on our way to go pick up one, and we want to show you guys the entire process on how you can basically get an LS motor for free for your project. So for instance, we are trying to make the Buick one of our budget project cars because we got it for 200 bucks. So we want to show you guys how you can get an LS for a project like that for basically no money if you park it out the right way. So we'll show you guys the whole process of what we're going to do, but right now we're going ahead and pick it up.
All right, we bought this truck and we're getting ready to load it up. We came to this Waffle House and it's closed. The only one in America that's closed. Anyway, here's a good look at the truck. We got it for 600 bucks, talking down. But usually we used to get these things for 500 and down was usually our limit. But these prices today, we haven't been doing this because they're so expensive now. But we figured filming a video and doing one will make it worth it. And this is still a good deal.
The next day.
We are going to give you a little bit better look at the Silverado that we bought for parts for our LS engine. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like now that it's light out. But first I'm going to unload it, get it off the truck, and then we can see if it runs, fire it up, and do a walk around on it. So let's unload it real quick. We settled on this one. It's not my favorite one we've had. We definitely have gotten better trucks for less money, but you know, it is what it is at this market. So I think we got an alright deal. A running and supposedly driving, we haven't driven it yet, Silverado 1500 with a 5.3 in it or a 4.8. We're gonna figure that out. See if it's a 4.8 or a 5.3. I assume it's a 5.3. It has a little bit higher options, but we'll see. The rockers are really shot. The bed fenders are really shot. Pretty typical in this. But a lot of guys buy the body parts and stuff because they use these as fleet vehicles. So fenders, doors, seats, hood, bumper, grill, tailgate, tires, wheels, stuff like that. So like our gauge cluster is good. These seats are good. The console's good, surprisingly. Headliner's good, which are common things that go wrong on these trucks. The back doors are all right. This door has a dent in it. This fender's good. The bumpers are in really good shape, which is happy about that. So we buy these things for parts, motor, transmission, differential, all that kind of stuff. But we bought this truck for the price that you probably could get a 5.3 for just by itself. So this way we have the entire wiring harness, everything that it would need for it to run. In fact, it actually does run, we just have to jump it. So I want to fire this thing up and see how well it runs. We only ran it for a little bit at the guy's house when we went to buy it, but it ran pretty good. So it's been in maintenance its whole life. This truck was a fleet vehicle, so routine oil changes and service by a dealership, so that's a good sign for a healthy motor. So should be a good candidate, a cheap candidate for our project Buick here that we're going to swap this engine into to make a burnout car slash budget drag car kind of deal for under 5,000 bucks. So it should be pretty fun. Honestly, I think we could do this for much more under 5,000 bucks, but it'll be a fun project, cheap thrash car for the channel. So let's see if this thing will fire up real quick. All right, got a battery in here and let's see if it'll fire up. All right, this thing has 376,000 miles on it. Pretty crazy, but let's see how it runs. It runs pretty good for 370,000 miles, almost 400,000 miles on this thing. Runs really good, no lifter tick, nothing. So it's a little worn in, so that's good because you want to gap the rings if you want to add boost to it. So it's like it's already gapped rings if its cylinders are worn down a little bit, but it seems to run really good. Will it go into gear? Drives forward. Yeah. Reverse is doing nothing. But it does drive forward. Huh. Yeah, it's making a bunch of noise. Guess the reverse band's slipping. But it runs good, that's all we care about. Alright, well, 370,000 miles, runs pretty good. So this will be interesting with see how long this thing will last with that many miles, but it's gonna be pretty cool. So I just popped the hood, and to verify the engine size, it's right here. It's actually a 4.8, which is smaller the engines, but for what we're gonna do with it and eventually boost this thing, it might be better because the 4.8 has lower compression and is a little bit better for boost. So this will be the classic Junkyard boost build with the old 4.8 Silverado. So it's gonna be pretty cool. But that is the details on the old 1500, 400,000 mile truck here. All right, so now we know our Silverado runs. We can now start to part this thing out on Facebook Marketplace. So what I normally do is just list the whole thing, let people come, tell me what parts they need, and start selling stuff. So now we'll show you guys all the parts that we sold for this thing and then show you guys how much we made. All right, guys, just pulled the drive shaft out because someone's buying it for $100. So that makes things a lot easier. So hopefully this guy buys this thing. That's $100 off the price. Someone's coming for the hood and the fender today, so I'm gonna yank that stuff off so we can sell that too. Now what's super nice about these Chevys is the way that they run all the wires, so it's actually pretty easy. A lot of stuff would be pretty intimidating with the wires, but basically everything is sectioned off between the engine harness and then the body harness. So if you need the engine harness side, you can just unplug straight from the fuse box, lay it on the engine and pull the motor. And if you want to take the body off or do something like that, you can pull the body section off and then leave it with the body. So you don't have to unplug anything from the motor or hardly anything from the body. Everything is just bolted right here, lay it on there, and everything is still plugged in where it needs to go. Whenever you put your motor back in your car, you can just plug it back into your fuse box and it should be wired and ready to go. All right, well, that guy ended up buying the entire front clip of the truck. So now it's a lot easier to pull the engine. So we got the whole front clip off and all that stuff is sold, which is really nice. So at this point, we've officially broken even and we made our $600 back. So I still have the entire interior that I ended up, the guy never showed up to pick it up. So I have that to sell. We still have a bunch of stuff to sell on this thing. And then we'll pull the engine out and we will get to putting this thing, getting it ready for what we're gonna do with it in our Buick. But gotta make some money first because these projects don't pay for themselves, except for this one. All right, cool. So we actually sold the drive shaft, the gas tank, and the entire front clip and made back all of our $600. So that's the beauty of parting stuff out. Just parts that guys need that can't get anywhere else. Come to Facebook Marketplace, buy some stuff on there, get the parts they need, you help them out, and you put some money back in your pocket. So now let's part the rest of this thing out and we can pay for some performance upgrades for our Buick here. All right, guys, we finally made all of our money back on the Silverado that we're parting out, and we still have a complete or semi-complete truck that we can still sell parts off of. So now everything from this point moving forward is profit that we can use for our LS swap. So someone is actually on their way right now to come pick up the bed off of this thing, even though it's pretty rotted. So we're gonna yank this off real quick, load it on their trailer, and that money will go into making our LS even better, so that way we can do some upgrades along the way. So the guy's on his way, we'll get to ripping this bed off real quick. All right, so these are pretty easy to pull out. There's just a bunch of body bolts that go right along the frame rail. Then you gotta take the filler neck off and some taillight wires, and it pops right off. So it's pretty easy. So let's get to pulling this thing out. All right, so for the filler neck, it's just 3 7mm, and then the neck will pull right out. So let's pull these off. Boom, done. Super easy on these cars. We love these because all the bolts are exposed, very easy to get to. No stupid plastic clips or any dumb things like that. So everything's bolted together, easy to pull off. And within a matter of, I don't know, I've been working on this for 2 or 3 minutes. The bed is ready to pull off. So super easy to get these trucks apart. That's why these are the best. All right, let's pull this bed off real quick, and hopefully this guy buys it. All right, easy as that. It's nice because I could pick it up from the wheel well. Since it's so rotted, not really gonna hurt anything. Either way, it probably would have been fine. So that's how you remove the bed on one of these trucks. One of these wires that get stuck think he added this for maybe like a trailer brake or something, so it wasn't in the factory loom. But easy as that. Now you can get to your gas tank, pull your diff out, do everything like that, pull your bumper off. Everything is hooked to the bed right here, so it's very easy. Everything just unclips. But that is how you pull the bed off. So the next step, probably, unless somebody buys more stuff, is to pull this cab off, and that way we can just yank our motor mounts out and then just lift our motor and trans out from the frame. It's usually the easiest way to do it when you're parting this stuff out. Alright, the guy just left with the bed. I don't know if you guys saw how he loaded that thing up, but he put one strap on it and said, that ain't going nowhere. So, that's so funny. I hope that thing doesn't go flying off down the road. Alright guys, it's finally time to pull the cab off of this Silverado. So we parted out as much as we can at this point, but somebody actually wants the transmission. So the easiest way to pull the motor and trans out of this thing is to just basically lift the whole body off, and then we can set the body aside, part it out a little bit more if we want to, and then we can get access to the transmission and the engine and everything like that. So I'll lift the body off of this thing real quick, show you guys how I do it, and then we can get access to the motor and trans. Alright, so we separated the harness. I just sliced the brake lines, pulled all the body mounts out of the bottom, and then the only other thing that's connected really is the emergency brake cable, which I just cut, and then the AC lines, there's nothing in them, so I just cut those. And I just have to undo the shifter, and that should be it. One of these bolts did strip out from one of these mounts because this thing's so rotted, so hopefully that's not a problem, but once we lift it up, it should hopefully just pull the whole thing off. So I'm gonna yank this thing up. These doors, nobody's bought them and they're pretty shot. So hopefully I don't bang them up too much, but probably end up will. Anyway, you lift the cab off and then get the engine out. Alright guys, now that I got the cab off, I can yank the engine out a lot easier. So I can just basically grab it from the top and then rip the whole thing out. So I'll show you guys what you got to cut out to be able to get it out from the top. Pretty simple. Just undo motor mounts, transmission mounts, and then if your truck's four-wheel drive, take the drive shaft out. But let me show you. Basically, you're going to have to, power steering lines, you're going to have to unhook. You're going to have to undo the motor mounts here, which are really easy. 3 bolts on each side, 15 millimeter. And then the transmission mount, 15 millimeter. Front drive shaft you're going to have to take out. Cut the exhaust, but you can sell your cats usually for a few $100 each. And then fuel lines you're going to have to get rid of, cut those. All the little heater hoses and everything like that I'm not going to use, so I just cut them. AC lines I'm not going to use, so I cut that. The wiring harness, obviously you want to keep as much as you can uncut, so I just unplugged everything, threw it up on top so it doesn't get snagged on anything. Other than that, I just threw a strap around the transmission, and then I threw a chain around the front of the engine. Gonna lift up on it, set it on a pallet, and someone's actually coming to pick up the transmission tomorrow. So I'm gonna undo the transmission from the engine and sell that for some money, and then put this motor on an engine stand and we can start digging into this thing. All right, separated the engine from the transmission. Pretty easy, few bolts. Kind of making a mess here, so gotta clean all this mess up, and we can finally put our engine on the engine stand. But get some money for that transmission, and our bare frame is here. The cab is over here, so that worked out pretty good. All right, so we have parted out basically all that we're gonna part out on this truck. There is some parts left on it that I think would be valuable, but just nobody has bought yet. But unfortunately, I can't keep this car here for too much longer. I've been parting it out for a few months. People have been coming picking stuff off, and I think we've made quite a bit of money on it. So what we're gonna do now is we have this shell left basically. We're going to actually scrap the cab and the rest of the frame, and we're gonna take it to our local scrap yard. They'll give us something for it, and then we can move on to fixing up our 4.8 here to put into our car. So we made all of the part out money. That's money that we can put into the motor here to make it even better. But one thing that we are going to have to take off of this is these connectors here for the harness that we're going to plug into our fuse box. Now when we pulled the motor off of this, we left everything hooked up with the fuse box, and everything is still here. We can connect all the connectors from the cab into here, so that way we have all of our wires and stuff that we're going to hook up for this thing to run. So I'm going to cut this off real quick, and that way we can get everything ready to go, so that way our wiring harness and stuff will still work. I'll show you guys how we're going to run the harness and everything like that. We have to get the ACU VATs deleted and some other stuff. Get this thing all torn down, cleaned up, and get it ready to go to put into our Buick Skylark over there. So that's what we're going to do now. But first, let me cut this connector off and we get this thing loaded up on the truck so we can get some scrap money out of this thing. All right, got this thing all loaded up. Let's hit the scrap yard, get this junk off here. All right, we're coming up to the scrap yard here. See how much this thing weighs here. It's like 16,080 pounds. All right, got this thing unloaded, so now we can get our scrap money for it. This place is pretty awesome. They part out cars and they scrap cars, so it's a nice place to come whenever you need parts for stuff. Look, there's a square body there, OBS Ford, Suburban. They got a bunch of pretty cool inventory. It's called Straw Hall Metal and Scrap. So anyway, let's get the cash for this thing. All right, so we're at 16,000 pounds. Now we're at 13,000 pounds. So pretty good weight. All right, so we got 3,000 pounds. We made about 200 bucks. So pretty decent. That's what's nice about scrapping stuff, is all the stuff that you have that you didn't sell or stuff, you can at least get some money back just with scrapping. So that's another 200 bucks that goes into the build. So that can cover a lot of stuff. So now we'll get the 4.8 torn down. We got to get that thing on an engine stand and try to get that thing ready to go to get in our Buick. But we'll go through all the stuff that we had made money on, so that way we can see how much we made and see what we can buy for it to make it a little bit better. All right, we finally parted our entire Silverado out. It was actually pretty easy. We got a lot of stuff sold, so I was pretty happy with the progress. We actually ended up selling the drive shaft, the front clip, the gas tank, the tailgate, the bumper, the bed, the interior, the transmission core, the cats, and we scrapped the whole thing. And we ended up making $2,100. So that way we can put that money into our Buick. So now we did have to take out the $600 that we paid for the truck. So that puts $1,500 into the bank account. So that way we can pay for all the performance upgrades that we're gonna do to this thing. Now, something I didn't realize about these Buicks whenever I first picked up this project is the transmission is a Turbo 350, but Buick and Pontiac use a different bell housing than a standard small block Chevy. So I am gonna have to be able to budget in a transmission and some other stuff to be able to go to make this thing work. So you're not going to want to miss the next episode where we tear into this 400,000 mile LS, see what that thing looks like on the inside, and see if it'll work on our Buick Skylark. Sounds like it ran pretty good, so I'm pretty sure she'll do just fine. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe so you can see all the updates that we're going to have on the Buick here. This thing was 200 bucks. We're going to put a 400,000 mile LS in it, see what it does, and then strap some turbos to it, see if we can get this thing to go fast down a quarter mile and do some awesome burnouts. So you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have a great time doing it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay updated on all the awesome things we're going to do on this channel. We got some big things coming up here in the next few months, so you're not going to want to miss that. We have a bunch of awesome build series that we're going to do, not just with this Buick, but with our Willys wagon, our Rambler, our F-250, and a bunch of other projects that we have on the channel. So you're not going to want to miss it, but we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching.